this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
You and I hear about people and families who bought a timeshare years ago. They enjoyed it at first, but now feel completely stuck. And that's the part that hits home. People don't regret the vacations. They regret the obligation. If your life has changed, but that contract hasn't, you should know this. There is a legal way out.
That's why we want to tell you about ACAtimeshare.com. They've helped thousands of families legally cancel their timeshares for good. If this sounds like you, call ACA Timeshare at 888-364-0222. That's 888-364-0ACA. Or visit ACAtimeshare.com. At least have the conversation. That's ACAtimeshare.com.
Welcome in, everybody. Thursday edition of the Clay, Travis, and Buck Sexton Show, known to many as Clay and Buck. That starts right now, and we got so much to get to. Let me just give you a little bit of an outline before we dive into all the biggest stories today. Uncle Bill O'Reilly, joining us, hour 2. Talk to him about how this whole Iran war thing is going, and the Save America Act. Have that discussion. Senator Eric Schmitt will be with us. And we will also have Senator John Cornyn with us. I would say to any of you we have a lot of Texans who listen. Texas or California, well, those are the two biggest states by population, so it's not really that surprising. But it's either Texas or California is our biggest state for listenership. So we have a lot of Texans, and we love all of you. Not all of you are huge Cornyn fans. Some of you perhaps are. Send us your questions for Senator Cornyn, and we will see if we can get a couple of them to him on the air today as he is in this primary, this contested primary, wondering if there will be a Trump endorsement. That's a lot of eyeballs on this one. So we will get to that. So we have 3 guests today, 2 senators, Uncle Bill, and now we can get into some of the news of the day. Clay, Little Mo, as Clay calls him, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has issued a statement, but someone has issued a statement on his behalf. He is apparently in a coma and missing a leg. So he got hit in one of these airstrikes, and they are putting him forward as the future of Iran. That certainly goes to what level of pressure the leadership of Iran is under, that even their next up at bat is having to have statements released from others around him because he's in a coma from an airstrike. So essentially, the next person who raises their hand in Iran and says, I'm going to continue the Islamic revolution in this country, and I shall continue to fight against the great Satan and the little Satan, probably going to get blown up. That is where we are right now, at least while these hostilities, this aerial campaign continues. Clay, oil price has surged a bit, and there are concerns as well after 2 tankers were attacked and I believe are on fire in the Strait of Hormuz. So they're continuing to try to go after the global oil industry as their choke point, as their way to hit back at us. Also, Trump monitoring Iranian terror sleeper cells. A lot of concern about that, and I think rightly concern about that, and we shall discuss that. So, Clay, first one up here, we are in another day of this aerial campaign. We now know that Mojtaba is in a coma. Lil Mo is having a tough one. What do you think about the latest here with the attacks on oil shipping and trying to make this a global environmental and economic catastrophe to get this to stop? That's clearly the Iranians' play.
Yeah, I think it actually is going to make President Trump angrier, and I think it's actually going to result in a worse outcome for Iran than if they allowed the oil to transit without issues at all. And I'm pulling up to check the oil price as we speak right now, because it has been probably the number one story that is out there, and it's hanging right around $90 a barrel. And you say, okay, Clay, where does that compare? Is around $65, if I remember correctly, before this war started. And now it's right around $90. It went all the way up to $120 Sunday in the opening hours of the market beginning with danger and fear. And so then it crashed all the way back down to like 75. It's come back up to around 90. It's bounced around a lot. And I think the question is, how safe is the Strait of Hormuz? And what does that mean for overall pricing of oil and gas? Now, President Trump has released, I think it's 180 million barrels is what I saw from the Strategic Reserve. There's 400 million worldwide being released. My understanding, Buck, is that takes a couple of weeks to actually come into the marketplace as a whole, because it takes a while for all those barrels of oil to reach the marketplace.
Yeah, I stand corrected on that one. Chuck Schumer said do it, and Trump's actually doing it. Now, the Democrats are going to hit him for having to do that, but the oil shock seems severe enough that some effort to soften the blow is a blow to your wallets, essentially, is underway. So there you go, Chuck Schumer giving some good advice to his opposition. Hey, Clay, even a broken clock, you know. So I'll take the L on that one. Trump's doing it. This is cut 17 on gas prices. Trump last night at Joint Base Andrews hit it.
There's a timeline on when you're planning to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a timeline of when that could happen?
We're going to be doing it very quickly, and then we'll fill it up. We'll fill up our reserves. You know, if you remember, I filled them up, and then I had a deal to go at the highest level, a level that's never been, and Schumer and the Democrats for $25, and it was turned down. You remember that, Peter. Almost before your time, but not quite. But it was, we had a deal at $25. Think of that. $25 a barrel, and the Democrats turned it down. We're going to tap it out like it's never been, but they turned that down, and now it's a lot higher.
Clay Trump, of course, saying Democrats had no foresight on this issue. Not a surprise, but there's enough of a jolt to the oil markets that there's serious and immediate action being taken to stabilize things.
Yeah, look, and I think this is where the average American is going to feel, to the extent we do anything going on with Iran, is in oil and gas prices. And I would just point out that 2 years of oil and gas prices coming down, by and large, was not a story. That is almost, I watch these television broadcasts of the news almost for at least 3 hours every day. While I'm talking to all of you, I have never seen CNN or MSNBC do a story on, boy, President Trump has really brought down gas prices during his tenure in office. Never seen a story about gas prices going down for a year and a half. And now gas prices have gone up for a week, and it's the lead story on MSNBC and CNN. And by the way, Buck, it vanished when oil and gas prices went back down to 75. Now that they've come back up to 90, we're back to covering oil and gas prices again. And they put the picture of the oil and gas prices in the corner of the screen. Right now, the talking point on CNN is oil and gas prices, and talking point on MSNBC is oil and gas prices. So I do think when it's a good story, right, for the year and a half that the prices came down, not one mention of it. For the 1 week they've gone back up, oh my goodness, this is a story that we have to cover.
Well, as we know, journalism in America has fully morphed into, it's not about what you should know. It's about telling the audience what they want to know.
Yeah.
What they want to hear, what they want to watch. And that's certainly the case over at CNN, at MSNBC, at MS Now. It's the case at Fox, too. I don't live in some delusional world. I mean, Fox is going to have a right of center point of view, but there's so much more honesty about that. I mean, their primetime lineup are opinion hosts. CNN still pretends that they're just journalists. Just Anderson Cooper could vote either way. Who knows? Does he love Trump? Does he hate Trump? Oil prices. Important today, unimportant yesterday. I wonder why.
I also think this is important, and I think it has been under-discussed, and it continues to be under-discussed. You can criticize Fox, and you can criticize them. You know, they have 66% of the news audience, whatever the heck it is, 60% on any given day, bigger than MSNBC and CNN combined. Their entire business is based on advertising. So their audience responds to things and they cover it. That used to be the overarching way that everybody made money. Now the New York Times makes money. Washington Post makes money off subscriptions. And that's a very different business model because subscribers want to be told that their worldview is correct. When you're pegged to advertising, you're trying to reach the biggest possible audience because that's how you get paid. Yeah. We get paid based on advertising. So the bigger the audience is, the more money this show makes. Yeah. We're not making money off subscriptions. The New York Times subscription changes the calculus of how the business is run. And I was just looking, this just came across the line, Buck. New York Times, this stunned me, has doubled the number of journalists it employs in the last 10 years. They have 2,300 journalists now, doubled what they had just 10 years ago. And that's to serve subscribers. It's not to provide the best possible outcome to the media ecosystem.
I also, though, think that there's, and this has been the case for a long time, this has been an argument that I've been making since before I was in media, there's a fundamental honesty with Fox News that which I think is part of why the audience is so durable, sticky, if you will. I mean, stays with Fox Watch. There's a fundamental honesty about, yeah, of course, like the opening monologue, like Jesse Waters isn't sitting there like, I don't have any opinions. I'm just presenting the objective news. Like, that's insane. These other channels have been doing this game of we're just news.
Yes.
And by the way, same thing with ABC News. And these other things, same thing with those. They're just lying. They're just lying to people, and eventually the lies got to be too much. But back to the oil price situation. I think, Clay, again, this is going to be relatively short term. And as long as that's the case, it will be fine. Here's Energy Secretary Chris Wright, though. We've had him on the show. Very interesting guy. This is Cut 18. He's saying, look, the Biden administration was playing all kinds of politics with this and not even using it for this is an emergency situation. They were just using it to try to goose the numbers to look better. Play 18.
We have about 415 million barrels in storage right now. Very unfortunately, the Biden administration drained almost 300 million barrels out, mostly to lower gasoline prices for a midterm election without disruptions in energy flows. That's not what the SPR is about. The SPR is about this, when we have short-term disruptions in flows to replace those flows. But Dana, we will simultaneously sell this oil in the near term when it's needed and buy long-term oil, meaning say 12 months down the road, and we'll pull out 170 million barrels and we'll put back in 200 million barrels in the next year. So we'll actually have more oil in our SPR a year from now than we do today. Okay. That's the responsible way to use it.
There you go.
Again, and what I think is so important about this is the only reason this isn't a major, huge, transformative danger for us is because we actually produce so much more oil.
Because we're the energy superpower of the world. You want to know why your grocery prices aren't skyrocketing and they're on oil lines? Go thank an oil man. Go thank somebody who works for Texaco or whatever. I mean, that's,
because in the 1970s, for those of you who lived through it, we were able to be held hostage effectively, both literally in the sense of what happened with Iran with our embassy there. But they were able to hold us hostage. Those of you who remember lining up and having difficulty getting oil and gas. Heck, Buck, I'm reading right now. I love reading about World War II. You know that during World War II, Americans were restricted to 4 gallons of gas a week. So people barely drove anywhere because of the huge shortage and the amount of oil and gas we needed in order to fight that war. At least they were in Iowa, where I'm reading about. Anyway, I love all of this, but the reason we now have energy independence is because we have unleashed the full economic spirit, capitalistic success of our oil and gas industry in a way that frankly didn't exist in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. For those of you who remember the first Gulf War, this is an utterly different era. And I want to tell you, as we come up on the era that we all experienced, the 25th anniversary of 9/11, Tunnel to Towers is having an incredible part of trying to make sure that we all remember everything that happened on September 11th, 2001, going back 25 years ago. I'm going to be participating in a bunch of different events to help raise money and awareness for this event. And Tunnel to Towers is committed to helping veterans achieve stability and independence. And we believe no veteran should ever be left behind. And that is what Tunnel to Towers is working on every single day. Join us in donating $11 a month and help. You can even give car or land or other things that you may have as assets, and you want to give back to those who have been putting their lives on the line to help keep us safe, whether it's soldiers, whether it's first responders, whether it is law enforcement. They're taking care of everybody. Frank Siller's organization does phenomenal work. I'm going to be with them later this month down in South Florida for a big fundraising event that they're doing. And I'm going to be with them later in the year, helping to raise money and helping to raise awareness as we honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice on 9/11 25 years ago today, 25 years ago now coming up. Head to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org, T2T.org.
Making America great again isn't just one man. It's many. The Team 47 Podcast. Sundays at noon Eastern in the Clay and Buck podcast feed. Find it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome in, hour number 2, Thursday edition. Clay and Buck, we appreciate all of you hanging out with us as we are rolling through the program here. We are joined now by our friend Bill O'Reilly, who has a brand new show debuting, We'll Do It Live, which is one of the most viral internet videos of news history, I would suggest. And I love that you're playing on the virality of that moment. What do you remember from that? Did you remember that clip when it started circulating on social media, or was it so long ago that you had totally forgotten about it?
Well, I was 12 years old, so I figured the statute of limitations might have run out on it. This is a great story. My whole staff turned on me. So I was anchoring Inside Edition, and as I mentioned, I was barely a teenager, and the tech crew couldn't get their act together. And it was super annoying. And I dropped a couple of F-bombs and said, we'll do it live, which we did. And that was that. And then years later, when I became, let's say, notorious on Fox News, somebody sold that clip.
Oh, wow.
To a far-left website for a large amount of money. And they put it out in the viral world, and it has become worldwide. And when I was in Iceland, I had people yelling at me, we'll do it live. And, of course, I threw snowballs back at them. So anyway, we're looking for a name for this long-form program we're going to do. I hate to call it a podcast because podcasts are basically two guys sitting in a basement smoking pot. That's not what we do. Okay, it's a long form interview with somebody you care about and somebody who's not a phony and will tell the truth. The first guy is Rob Schneider. That drops today. And Schneider goes through how he suffered in his career because he supports Donald Trump. And he talks about Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, it's fascinating stuff I've never heard before. But anyway, my staff, you're all younger. Oh, we have a great name for this show. I said, okay, what is it? We'll do it live. And they all started to laugh. And so not only did they turn against me, but they won. I surrendered. I said, all right, fine. I don't care what you call a damn show. But I didn't drop any F-bombs.
I got to tell you, Bill, we love the name. The audience loves the name. It's a great name. That clip of you is one of just like the 10 greatest viral, and it was released pretty early on in the viral internet game, so it really had resonance. But we'll do it live. I mean, that line has probably been translated into 150 languages now.
I know. It's unbelievable. If I had known it would go like that, I would have done it many more times.
Oh, wait, can we, you guys have it? A couple of bleeps here, but the team wants to play it. A little throwback here. Bill, Inside Edition. He's just a teenager. He just started shaving, and here he is on Inside Edition. Play it.
Tomorrow, and that is it for us today, and we will leave you with I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
Oh, wait, is that it? Okay, that's We'll Do It Live. There you go, Bill.
Yeah,
everyone knows the clip. It's a lot of fun.
That, by the way, guys, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
we got you.
Yeah,
so that's going to be a great series, and everyone should go check it out. BillO'Reilly.com. I gotta say hard turn here, Bill, because we're having a fun trip with you down nostalgia lane there, but now we gotta focus in on, world peace, fixing America, all that stuff for a second. How concerned are you? You're a balls and strikes calling guy. How concerned are you with this campaign in Iran, oil price spike? Does Trump really know what the end game is here? Do you feel like this is going according to plan, or are you getting worried about it?
Well, anytime it's military action, I'm concerned. From the very beginning of the adventure, if you want to use that word, it was a huge risk. The president's aware of it. If it goes his way, he will, I think, catapult himself into the top area of the presidential sweepstakes, which is important to him, his legacy. If it doesn't, then the Republicans are likely to lose the midterms. So there's a lot on the line. There's not one modern president who would have done this. Maybe Teddy Roosevelt, but he wasn't a modern guy. But even Teddy might have said, it's just too much uncertainty here. So the thinking was that Iran is not going to stop developing a nuclear weapon, even though we hit them in June of 2025. They have other places where they're developing this, and they admit it. It's not like a he said, she said. And in the last negotiation with Witkoff in Geneva, Switzerland, the Iranian foreign minister basically said, look, we're not going to stop. We're going to develop this nuclear weapon, and we don't care what you think. That was it for Trump. That was the end. And then the president waited for an opening. The opening came when the Israeli intelligence, Mossad, pinpointed the Ayatollah and 25 of his thug cronies were all going to be together on a Saturday morning in a specific place in Tehran. That information got to President Trump. He said, okay, we'll let the Israelis wipe them off the face of the earth, which happened, and then we'll follow up and destroy the infrastructure of Iran's ability to wage offensive war, which is underway now and which will succeed. Now, the unintended consequences are how much pain is that going to cause the world economically? And the other unintended consequence is that a lot of the media, the worldwide media, not just America, is rooting against America. They want Iran to win, which is absolutely shocking to me, because this is a murderous nation. This is the Third Reich light. They killed 30,000 of their own people a few weeks ago. 30,000. And you're rooting for them to win? You want Trump to be humiliated? That's what you're putting forth on CNN, the New York Times, and others? That's what you want? Really, think about it. That is really a tipping point. Now, President Trump himself believes what he wants to believe. And he is convinced that the United States and Israel will wipe out Iran's ability to wage offensive war. I believe that is true. But the economic outcome is cloudy. And that could mean the Democrats win the midterms in November. And that's what we're looking at right now.
Bill, you may have talked to President Trump and actually given him this advice. If you did, or if you were asked, what should victory look like here? What would you suggest to President Trump, given where we are right now? We've wiped out certainly a lot of the Air Force, a lot of the Navy, a lot of the military capabilities of Iran are gone. We'll see whether or not Mojtaba, the son here, is or is not alive and able to take power. But what would you say to President Trump is an off-ramp here? What should an end in hostilities look like from a United States perspective?
Well, I did talk to the president about it in a one-on-one phone conversation. He called me, I never call him. I mean, that's not my job, and he's a president. I'm not going to intrude. And he said, what would you do? And I said, I'd negotiate it down to the fact that there'll be routine inspections inside Iran. And they're not to develop ballistic missile capacity. You have to downgrade Revolutionary Guard. And you have to become a nation that does not wage war constantly or finance terrorism. That's a negotiation. If they agree to that, then you would help them rebuild their economy. The problem is that Iran will say they'll do it, and then they won't do it. We all know that. But that negotiated settlement, I think, still could happen. But they're going to have to experience a lot of pain before the Iranians get to that place. And so no one can say when it will end. I mean, it's like asking General Patton, when he's up trying to defeat the Nazis in Bastogne, how long is this going to take, General? Come on, it's war. I mean, those questions are ridiculous and stupid and immature and designed to produce gotcha results. And that's all the American president. Well, how long? Nobody knows. And the American people, we have a soft society. We don't want to be inconvenienced or pay more money for anything. And then, you got the hate Trumpers. So it's very complicated. But I think what will happen is that Iran will come back to the table, and there'll be some kind of an agreement to neuter them as a state-sponsored terrorist outfit.
Hey, Bill, first off, everyone make sure you check out first episode today of We'll Do It Live, which is up on BillO'Reilly.com. Go watch the show. It's got Rob Schneider, who I'll give a lot of credit to for being a Hollywood guy who's been right-wing for a long time. Bill, one more topic for you before we got to head into the break. So we'll do a kind of shorter version on it. But this Save America Act, we're getting so much from everyone listening about talk more about the Save America Act. You got to push the Save America Act. And I get it. And I agree with it. And I wish it would pass. But I also feel like Majority Leader Thune plus about 4 or 5 other senators aren't going to pass this thing. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, do you think is there a world in which there's enough pressure, enough phone calls on these senators? I don't think you're getting, McConnell and Murkowski and they're not going to vote for this thing.
McConnell will, Murkowski won't. But you need 60 to get it to the Senate floor. They're not going to get that. Thune knows it. He'll put it up for a vote next week. But this hurts the Democratic Party big time. Because 79% of the American public, and that includes a lot of Democrats, obviously, want voter ID. And all the socialist countries in Europe have it. And there's no reason not to have it. So the Republicans are going, yeah, we know we're not going to get it through the Senate. It's already passed the House, as you guys know. But, the damage that the Democrats are going to do to themselves may be worth it. And that's the way our system is. So you need 60 votes to get it to a vote on the floor in the Senate. Now there's an effort to knock out the filibuster. I don't think that's wise, but that could happen. And the American people understand that in order to diminish voter fraud, you've got to prove that you're an American citizen, which is the federal law.
Do you believe these reports that McConnell is stalling it? You say he'll vote for it, but
no, he's barely cognizant. The guy's just limping to the finish line.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't, have any presence at all. Murkowski is not really a Republican. Okay, and she hates Trump so much that anything Trump supports, she'll oppose. I don't expect any other defections. Even crazy Rand Paul. I mean, you just can't. But the Democrats, I mean, that's a bad hill for them to stand on.
Bill O'Reilly, check it out. We'll do it live. We appreciate the time, and good luck on the new show.
Always fun talking to you guys. Thanks for having me.
That's great work. And he's going to do it live. Bill O'Reilly. Look, few organizations do more to create a bridge between the Christian and Jewish populations than the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The IFCJ has been doing this for a long time, firmly established in communities throughout Israel and Ukraine. just to name two countries where help is needed most right now. This is a humanitarian organization. When I was in Israel, we helped to put together food bank deliveries. We saw the bomb shelters that they built. We even saw the hospital that they had built that could be flipped so that everything was underground in the event of danger. They need your help right now, as people more and more are under siege in the Holy Land. Right now, you can give $45 to rush life-saving essentials to the vulnerable there in Israel under fire. Call 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-IFCJ. You can join us in donating at ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org.
Stories of freedom, stories of America, inspirational stories that unite us all. Each day, spend time with Clay and Buck. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Third hour of Clay and Buck gets going right now. We're joined by Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri now. Senator, thanks for stopping by.
Good to be with you.
Let's start with the SAVE Act, sir. We have so many people who are paying close attention to this. A lot of listeners all across America who are saying, this seems like a must. This seems so straightforward, so necessary as a law. And, of course, Democrats oppose it. Is there any realistic path forward for this? What is the best outcome as you see it for the SAVE Act that's realistic? What do you want to happen?
Well, we need to get on it, and the hope is that next week we will actually be on the Senate floor with the SAVE Act. I think that'd be, and by the way, spend some time on it. And I'm a supporter of this talking filibuster idea. I think that's what people think happens in Washington and the United States Senate. They think of Jimmy Stewart holding the floor. And the Senate, the old line is it operates by unanimous consent or exhaustion. And I think the Democrats should have to own this and earn it. If they want to block the idea that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, you have to show an ID to vote, that we're not going to allow mass mail-in balloting scams, we're not going to allow transgender surgery for minors, and we shouldn't allow boys and women's sports, men and women's sports, that's what this will do. And those are common sense proposals. They're 80-20 issues. They might be higher than that. And I think it's really important, most importantly, for protecting the election security and regaining the trust of the American people. So my hope is that we're on it and we stay on it.
So if we go to the talking filibuster, there have been all sorts of different reports that I have read about what that actually looks like, what that means. What do you anticipate a talking filibuster would look like, and how does it end? How does it progress?
So you got to get on the bill, and if we take the House bill, and forgive me if I get in the weeds, but since you asked the question. So yeah. The House bill, it only requires 51 votes to get on it, right? So we can take the House bill that's been passed, and then it is before the Senate. And then at that point, amendments are in order. I'm working closely with the White House on this, Senator Lee. Amendments would be in order. So that version that came over has two provisions. It doesn't have the mail-in piece. It doesn't have the transgender piece. It doesn't have the men and women's sports piece. So we would be able to amend it. And then at that point, and that's a majority vote when you're on amendments. Then at that point, we need to get to a final vote. And the one way you can get to the final vote is that you just run out of Democrats that want to hold the floor for hours and hours. Now, the commitment from the Republican side is that we need to make sure we hold a quorum for the whole time that this happens, meaning if a Democrat says, hey, I note the absence of a quorum, meaning there's not enough people in the chamber, there have to be 51 Republicans that are there to maintain the quorum. So this is something that used to happen. I think the Senate's got kind of lazy with the way we do it now, where you just come in and you clock in a vote and it gets you to 60. So this is about holding the floor, voting on amendments for a period of time. That's how it would play out.
Now, speaking of the floor, I believe you've been on the Senate floor asking for unanimous consent to fund the Department of Homeland Security for the next 2 weeks. Where does that stand? I assume Democrats are either have blocked it or are going to block it.
Yeah, they blocked it. So basically the Democrats are blocking funding for Homeland Security. So the irony here is They let 15 million people in this country. Some of them are terrorists. Many are murderers and even more violent criminals, but they're defunding Homeland Security. That's what their position is. So they're blocking our efforts to fund it because they're having a temper tantrum about ICE. What it's really about, guys, is they don't actually think we should enforce our immigration laws. They don't like the result in 2024. They don't care that American mothers and daughters are being raped and murdered by illegal immigrants, and ICE has a job to do. We've set out what their job is in our laws that have been passed by Republicans and Democrats and enforced, by the way, by Republicans and Democrats in previous administrations. But what we saw with Joe Biden was unprecedented. He threw open the border. Millions of people are here. President Trump ran on deporting those folks. And here we're at. They don't like the results, so they just want to defund ICE. That's what this comes down to. So in the crosshairs, then in the mix there, in that DH funding bill is TSA, the Coast Guard, all these agencies that outside of ICE, and the Democrats are blocking funding because of Trump derangement syndrome.
Okay, you're breaking down everything going on in that context. We're hearing about hours and hours that everybody's having to stand in line. And at some point, especially with it being spring break week, people just look around and they're angry. You may not be paying attention to what's funded and what's not. We've got an alleged shooting that you may or may not have seen that took place in West Bloomfield, Michigan. Reports are that the shooter is believed to be dead. We know what happened in Austin, Texas, where unfortunately a couple of people were murdered by what appears to have been a deranged lunatic. And we know in New York City there were just a couple of IEDs thrown that fortunately did not go off, but could have killed many people. Isn't it absolutely beyond the pale absurd that we would be in a situation where I think the number right now is 300 some odd TSA agents have just said, hey, I've got to quit. I've got to find a new job, or I've got to make money right now, that Democrats would be refusing to fund these individuals?
It's crazy. I mean, it's so stupid, Clay. I've seen a lot of stuff in politics. I've seen a lot of arguments. It's just so dumb. But they're obsessed. First of all, they hate President Trump, and that manifests itself in many different ways. But they thought they had some moment, I think, in Minneapolis that they were going to be able to ultimately prevent law enforcement from doing their jobs by overloading them with burdens that they can't, and we can talk about what those are, but basically it would render ICE unable to deport people. That's what they want. And so they are willing to hold all of this hostage. And now the legacy media will go along with it, and they'll create some issue about some negotiation on this, but it's very simple. Republicans just voted to fund TSA, to fund ICE, to fund Secret Service, to fund the Coast Guard, and the Democrats have voted no. It's not that complicated. It's stupid, but it's not complicated.
Senator Schmitt with us now. And Senator, I think that this war in Iran, or whatever, we haven't really come up with something other than a war to call it, I guess, this overseas aerial campaign against the Iranian military. Definitely acts of war going on. The president seems very confident that this is both achieving its objectives and will be limited in scope, and he is in charge of that scope. What's your sense as to how this is going so far, and what's your confidence level that this will be wrapped up, say, by the end of the month?
Yeah, I mean, I think the president's committed to accomplishing the objectives as he laid out. And essentially, in a nutshell, the nuclear program that we, had a devastating blow to with the B-2s out of Missouri, by the way, last summer, Iran was basically creating this missile shield, this conventional ballistic missile shield to protect it for their future ambitions. And that's being wiped out now. So that's really the mission. We had a briefing earlier this week. They're ahead of schedule on that. And I think the president's committed to doing this. He understands the concerns that people would have about having another forever war in the Middle East. I don't think he wants that. But he's committed to this mission. I think they're accomplishing that right now.
Much less seriously, I saw you Friday at the President's College Sports Roundtable, and I know you have introduced a bill alongside of a Democrat colleague that would help to rectify the mess that is college athletics. What would it do? Are you optimistic that it can be a solution?
It's the first bipartisan bill that's been introduced on this measure, and I think that's a significant development. To set the stage, college athletics right now is very chaotic. In college football, by and large, for years, has essentially been the cash cow that funds all the non-revenue sports, women's sports, Olympic sports, even sports like baseball that don't really generate revenue, save a couple schools here or there. Because of the new system that we have right now, it's just a matter of time. And I think that time's pretty soon where you're just going to start seeing all that programming dropped and all those scholarships drop for people who, can change their lives. So what's the solution? I was skeptical, Clay and Buck, about Congress. If you had asked me this 2 years ago, I'd been, why is Congress considering anything here? But the truth is, Congress is the only entity on the planet that can grant antitrust exemption to some governing body to set some rules, transfer rules, eligibility rules, agent rules, things that they can't do right now because of lawsuits have basically rendered the NCAA feckless. They can't do anything. So we can do that. But I don't think you solve the governance problem or the challenges in college sports without revenue to basically pay for these sports, right? These non-revenue women's sports, the Olympic sports that we all love. And so our proposal, Senator Cantwell and I from Washington, are that, look, the NFL, the NBA, MLB, they all have antitrust exemption to collectively negotiate to pool their media rights. Okay. And to just give you a statistic, the NBA has half the audience of college football, but twice the revenue. The NBA generates about 8 billion. College football is about 4 billion, but they have twice the eyeballs every week. And so, the SEC and Big Ten are big players in that. But what we could do is our bill says, look, you can pool your media rights. We respect the conferences that are going to bring in the lion's share of the revenue. But that bargaining will be great for fans because think about it. With the NFL, there's different channels. There's a Sunday night game. There's a Monday night game. Sometimes there's a Thursday night game. College football, the interest is growing, and you can actually have a system here where Fox and ESPN, all of them are bidding up those dollars that can protect those sports, and it'll be great for the fans.
How optimistic are you that this thing is going to pass?
I think this component is key. I don't think you can just do the governance piece and get to 60 votes in the Senate, right? I think there has to be a carrot here where everybody feels like they're growing. So if you're a school that's been kind of left behind on some of this stuff, on the revenue that's been generated for it's the conferences that are doing exceedingly well, there's a reason for them to do it. I think, and look, I'm a Mizzou guy. I love Mizzou. They're in the SEC. I love SEC football. I think they're going to do well in this model too. So I'm optimistic that the next phase, the House is probably going to, vote on something next week, just the SCORE Act, which is just the governance piece. I think the thing at the White House last week added momentum. I think we're going to be, hopefully the next step in the Senate is a hearing in the Commerce Committee where I serve on, and this will be heard out. And I think that's where the work will be done to try to find a compromise to literally save college sports. If we don't get this done this year or maybe next year, but I think this year is very important, I think the landscape looks different forever. And if we fix it, or I should say we give them the tools to fix it, I think it changes things for the next 50 years. It'll be great for fans.
Good stuff as always, Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri. We appreciate the time. Good luck on getting all that taken care of.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. I want to tell you all about our friends at Erie Home and what a huge difference they are making for so many of you out there that need new roofs and need to do it in an affordable fashion. We moved into a new house recently. You look outside, you know how much damage can occur to a roof, and you want to make sure that you are getting the best possible roof for you and your family. Erie Home is a 50-year-old company specializing in making sure the roof of your house is in excellent shape. Erie Home will inspect your roof for any problems free of charge using a 25-point inspection they've developed over many years in business. If your roof needs replacement, Erie Home offers all kinds of options, including the use of newer metal materials made to mimic the look of the roof you have now. These new metal materials allow your new roof to last up to 2 or 3 times longer than traditional shingle roofs with proper care and maintenance. Your new roof from Erie Home will also come with a 50-year transferable warranty. So if you sell your home, you're providing even more value in the selling process. Schedule your free inspection at eriehome.com/clay today. Get a discount off the installation price as well. That's eriehome.com/clay. Discount maximized $1,200. Get hooked up today at eriehome.com/clay. That's eriehome.com/clay.
News and politics, but also a little comic relief. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. I want to update you guys on the latest. This is from Fox News, and I just sent it. And let me make sure that I read this correctly. Authorities say the shooter involved in the attack at Temple, Israel, that's outside of Detroit, Michigan, found badly burned after crashing a village into the, crashing a vehicle into the building, which then caught fire. Armed security engaged in a shootout and fatally shot the would-be attacker. Also, CNN reporting, and this may be why he was badly burned, that the vehicle was filled with explosives.
So that would explain a lot here, because you would have somebody who tried to create a VBIED, a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, essentially a car suicide bomber, and the bomb didn't go off. Making bombs is fortunately harder than a lot of people think it is, especially if you've never done it before. Near miss, it seems, Clay. Looks like no casualties, no good guy, no good gal casualties in the synagogue, only this guy taken out, right?
That's right. And again, this now suggests Austin, New York City, Detroit, Virginia, all with the same motive, that is a violent terror attack. We bring in now Senator John Cornyn of Texas. He is with us. We got a bunch to get into with you, Senator. We appreciate the time. Let's start with this primary runoff against Ken Paxton in late May. President Trump has said that he is going to endorse, but has held off on endorsing. Do you expect him to endorse you? What impact do you think the president's endorsement in Texas would have?
Well, I've told the president that I thought his endorsement would be very impactful, and I would be delighted if he chooses to endorse me in the race. So far, he has not done that, and people ask me, well, what's he going to do? And my usual response is, there's only one person on the planet who knows the answer to that, and it's not me. So we are not. We're continuing to work hard toward that May 26th runoff, and if the president decides to make an endorsement, that'd be great news.
Senator Cornyn, appreciate you being with us. My understanding is, and feel free to correct any part of this because there's a lot of senators and I can't know everything that all of you have ever thought or said, but my understanding is that you've long been, in the past, a defender of the Senate filibuster rule, so a 60-vote threshold for most legislation, but that you just recently published Why the SAVE Act Matters More Than the Filibuster. Am I right? Is that where you are now? Is that a major departure, a major change in your feeling about the filibuster? And what brought you to this? Because you're going to have some critics who say, well, this is just because you're up for re-election and you want to seem like you're going to give the base what it wants.
Well, the filibuster has stopped a lot of really bad legislation. When the Democrats were in charge, they proposed packing the Supreme Court, making Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia states, and getting 2 Democratic senators each, and permanently changing the country. So the filibuster has worked well to stop bad stuff. But we're in much different times now, and with the Trump derangement syndrome and the polarization up here in Congress, Democrats just reflexively oppose everything that Trump has proposed or that Republicans want, including paying the Transportation Security Agency agents and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They didn't do anything wrong, but they're the people being punished now by this second shutdown of a significant part of the federal government. So I long for the day when you would have these 2 political parties who were obviously have different priorities and different ideas about how to govern, but where there is still the possibility of finding some common ground and working to build consensus. I think that's good for the country when we can do that, because any short-term measures that one party or the other passes can change the next time the Congress flips. So I would call this a really kind of an evolution of my views that fit the times. I don't think it's okay for us to just tell my constituents in Texas, we can't get anything done because the Democrats won't cooperate. And we know, as the president has pointed out, that when the shoe is on the other foot, when they're in the majority, they will blow up the filibuster immediately. So I've said I'm open to the talking filibuster, which we hope to use on the Save America Act. and potentially other reforms as well.
We're talking to Senator John Cornyn of Texas. He's in a runoff against Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas, on May 26th. We know that one of you will be running against James Tallarico, who frankly seems like a very far left-wing and radical nominee for the Democrats. Do you believe that you would beat Tallarico worse than Ken Paxton would? And is that one reason why you would argue people should vote for you in this upcoming runoff?
Yes, that's exactly right. I will be at the top of the ticket as the nominee. And in 2020, last time I ran, I won by 10 points, which means that not only will we keep the Senate seat in Republican hands, but it will help down ballot races, including these 5 new congressional seats that were drawn as a result of redistricting to hopefully help keep the majority in the House. The Attorney General has so much political baggage that I think it's an open question whether he could actually even win. So thus the prospect or the possibility of actually losing a red state Senate seat in this election. And even if he were to win by the skin of his teeth, I would think he will not win by a margin that will help down ballot. And it'll cost hundreds of millions of dollars to try to salvage him and salvage this red seat. So that is part of the argument that we've been making, and I know the president and his team are fully aware of.
Okay, so let's say that you weren't the nominee. Let's say Ken Paxton won or vice versa. Would you campaign heartily for whoever the Republican nominee is, and do you expect that he would campaign for you in order to make sure that this seat, as you just laid out, doesn't end up in Democrat hands or doesn't even end up hopefully competitive, so that there's not having to be a ton of money spent on it? In other words, you win, that's great. You're going to be working hard. Do you expect his endorsement? If you lose, will you endorse him?
Well, first of all, I expect to win, but to answer your question, I've worked most of my adult life trying to build the Republican Party, both at the state level and at the national level. My first statewide election was in 1990 when we still were basically a divided state. We had a Democratic governor that year, Ann Richards, for example. But to answer your question, I would support the Republican ticket. I think that's the best answer I can give you.
Speaking to Senator Cornyn of Texas, and Senator, why would you be better? I mean, a lot of times it comes down to, for some people, trying something new. You've obviously been in the Senate for quite some time. Why would it be better to have you representing Texas than Attorney General Paxton? And how would you address any critics that you have who say that you're not as MAGA when it counts as you'd like to appear at election time? Because we get a lot of emails, a lot of callers, and this is something that we hear. Wanted to give you an opportunity to just lay it out there for everybody.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of this has to do with personalities and temperament. I spent 13 years of my life as a judge and then as Attorney General before I got to the Senate. And I always like to tell people I'm a conservative. I'm just not mad about it. But the point is, what you've done. And that's one reason why in Texas in our advertising, we pointed out that I have voted with the president 99.3% of the time. That's a better number than Ted Cruz, the junior senator from Texas, by the way. And secondly, we need somebody who can be effective for the state. So when the governor called me and said, look, Texas taxpayers have had to step up and pay $11 billion to help secure the border when Biden wouldn't, he called me, and we worked with the Texas delegation to get that done. And so we are expecting a nice check from the federal government to the Texas taxpayer of $11 billion. It takes some experience and relationships to be able to get that done. And I think my effectiveness on behalf of 32 million Texans is something that separates me from the Attorney General. We're
talking to John Cornyn, senator from Texas, runoff May 26th. when you looked at the results, you won the primary in the first go around. You had the most votes. Were you surprised by that? Did you expect it? What does that outcome tell people about Texas?
Well, I would. There's nothing's guaranteed, but I was optimistic that I would win, and that was, there have been a lot of what I call trash talk, including the Attorney General, who said he could win without a runoff. And obviously that didn't materialize. So, we've been only about 11% of registered voters voted in the Republican primary. Thankfully, people who didn't vote in the primary can vote in the runoff. But a lot of this has to do with motivating your voters and getting them to the polls. In the end, winning elections isn't all that complicated. It's about who gets the most votes. And we simply worked hard to try to encourage as many people as we can to vote in the Republican primary. So, the Democrats outvoted us, which should be a warning shot across our bow.
Senator, we got a lot of emails because we asked for questions. And, for example, I'll just let you address this. We have one VIP who wrote in and said, I believe Senator Cornyn voted against Pete Hegseth for DOD Secretary, now Secretary of War. You voted yes for Pete Hegseth, if memory serves. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some of the questions we get are actually not fair to, just to call balls and strikes here, Senator. They're not fair to your record. People seem to think for some reason that you have voted not 99% of the time with Trump.
Yeah. Well, the president knows what my record is, and he calls me a friend. And there was some indication that he was prepared to endorse me after leading in the primary on March the 3rd. Obviously, as we said, the timing of that, and if it happens, is entirely up to him. But I think the president views me as an ally and somebody who's supported him, and I think he appreciates that. I was there on the front lines during the confirmation of 3 new Supreme Court justices. When we passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, I was the whip who helped get that across the finish line. So a lot of the campaign is about reminding people about what my record is and, frankly, disabusing people of some of the falsehoods that are out there. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to address that.
Senator Cornyn, thank you for coming on the show and taking our questions, and Godspeed to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Iran has launched multiple ballistic missiles at Israel carrying cluster bomb warheads, which spread dozens of small bombs over wide areas of the country. When that happens, there's destruction and death, which happened on Tuesday. These are heinous weapons, and 120 countries have banned them. This is what life is like in Israel right now. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has been working there for many years, but this month is a challenge dealing with these cluster bombs. The entire IFCJ team is supplying bomb shelters and medical centers with critically needed essentials. IFCJ is also working to bring food, emergency supplies, and care for children and the elderly. Make a stand for Israel and the future of civilization and support the IFCJ today. Give $45 right now to rush life-saving essentials to the vulnerable under fire. Call 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-IFCJ. Or go online to ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org.
Want to be in the know when you're on the go? The Team 47 Podcast. Trump highlights from the week. Sundays at noon Eastern in the Clay and Buck Podcast feed. Find it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
You and I hear about people and families who bought a timeshare years ago. They enjoyed it at first, but now feel completely stuck. And that's the part that hits home. People don't regret the vacations. They regret the obligation. If your life has changed, but that contract hasn't, you should know this. There is a legal way out.
That's why we want to tell you about ACAtimeshare.com. They've helped thousands of families legally cancel their timeshares for good. If this sounds like you, call ACA Timeshare at 888-364-0222. That's 888-364-0ACA. Or visit ACAtimeshare.com. At least have the conversation. That's ACAtimeshare.com.